What is up, YouTube? This is your host, Ranee B, here to spell that homicidal T. In today's case, it's just mean. Mean people, mean motive, mean spirited. Get it? You see what I did there? Mean. Anyway.
Don't laugh, it ain't funny.
I don't know. It's like we're going to be handling some topics that are, and I'm weird about trigger warnings because it's almost like trigger warning. That's a trigger warning for some people. And then plus, I'm super pragmatic, and it's like, this is a true crime channel. What do you expect kind of topics we're going to be covering here? So put on your big girl panties, put on your big boy boxers, and your non-binary knickers.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Don't say knickers in front of your father. He can't cope. I can't cope.
Sure, what's a pair of knickers between cousins?
Because you are going to have to buckle up. Because there are going to be some mentions of some not so great events and some themes. But I think you can handle it. Because, if you watch the cases like Katie Coleman that I just put up or Steven Stanner, you've been inducted into the holy crap, what just happened club. So this one isn't really a bed of roses, though, either. So that's why we're here, though, to talk about these stories that no one else will. And so let's just go ahead and not let time pass by Amber. And let's remember her here. So here we go. The solved homicide case of Amber Hess. Amber Leanne Hess was born on September 5th, 1989. She was from a small town by the name of Queen Creek in Arizona. It was a nice little suburb located about 30 miles from Phoenix. Old Amber, she sounded a lot like me at her age.
Oh, God, here we go again.
A little crass, extremely funny, savagely honest, and strangely enough, though, one of the most secretly caring people that you'd ever run into. She loved her friends, she loved her family, she generally loved life, and she especially loved her little dog. My kind of girl. It was in 2007. She had just graduated from Coolidge High School and planned on continuing her education at Mesa Community College. But she never got a chance to. Not too long after she graduated, June 24th, 2007 to be exact, Amber's mom and dad, Mike and Candy Hess, returned home from an amazing trip that they had just taken to Mexico. When they finally got to their house, they found their home had been transformed into a crime scene. A crime scene that yielded zero answers to the obvious questions. What the hell happened, and where's Amber? Walking in further and seeing blood on the kitchen floor, they immediately called the Pinal County Sheriff's Office to report the state of their home and Amber's disappearance and possible kidnapping, or even worse. Sergeant Dave Hausman and Detective Landon Rankin were the first on the scene, and what stuck out immediately was that there was a garden hose coming out of the home through the front door. That Mike and Candy, they reported, was left wide open, presumably by who'd ever done all this. Maybe it was a possible attempt to clean up after themselves. The amount of blood that the detectives found in the kitchen was staggering. The remaining rooms, they were searched and cleared by officers, and one thing was wildly apparent. There had been a violent struggle throughout the house. Whomever was at the receiving end of this fight, they fought hard and tirelessly. Now, at this point, they still had no idea if Amber was the victim or the instigator. Unfortunately, things looked like they were not going to be resolved in Amber's favor when police found Amber's bed sheets were missing from her bed. And her door, it was stripped off the hinges. It was like torn from the frame. Like the hinges had actually been pulled out of the wall in the door jamb. Also missing from the home was a pistol and Amber's 2002 Mitsubishi Lancer. Police asked Amber's parents if she had any enemies or anyone who would want to hurt her. They pressed them, asking if they knew of any potential boyfriends, ex-boyfriends, friends, ex-friends, anybody that'd be threatening her. But her parents knew of no one that even disliked their daughter that much. Sure, she got into little bickers with girls. Who doesn't at 17? But nobody wanted to kill her. But they did tell police to ask her best friend, Todd Hoke. Todd was Amber's closest friend. He was 16 years old and was seen around the Hess family often. Since Todd was only 16, he was brought down to the station and accompanied by his grandmother while he was questioned. Detectives asked Todd if he had seen Amber that weekend, and Todd stated that Amber was a no-show for their planned movie night with another friend, Nick Castillo. Todd went on to tell police that he'd stayed the night over at Nick's house, expecting Amber to show up eventually, and she never did. Police followed up on the statement and verified with Nick's mother that Nick and Todd were together that night at her house, and they were not at the Hess residence. When police spoke to Amber's aunt, she shed some new light on the case, and she revealed that Amber had recently split with a young man named Chris that had a criminal history. When police tracked him down, Chris gave an alibi and it checked out. He said he was nowhere near the Hess residence and said that their split really wasn't a dramatic one. He was genuinely concerned about Amber's welfare, and from there, detectives went farther back in Amber's dating history. They located one of her other ex-boyfriends, and when questioned, he said that Amber and his union was short-lived, and it ended as fast as it began. It just wasn't dramatic. He also had an alibi, and that one checked out. So far, romantic history did not seem to be a motivating factor. At this point, it is common for the FBI and U.S. Marshals to get involved. The FBI were able to get Amber's call logs and location information from her cell phone provider. Now, she was 17. They had a lot of information to dig through. Meanwhile, 3 days after her disappearance, an officer searching a remote part of the desert area of the state, not too far from Queen Creek, found what appeared to be a burnt body. It was wrapped in bedding as well. Inside of the bedding, there were unburned pictures with writing on the back. And the name written on the back of these images? Amber. Detectives made their way to the scene and found that there were actually tire tracks that were similar to Amber's Mitsubishi Lancer's tires that were next to the scene. They had also found 2 separate and distinctly different sets of footprints, one from a Vans type shoe and the other from an All-Star Converse type of sneaker. Using this information, the profile of the killers was starting to look like 2 teens. Dental records were used to identify Amber, and the medical examiner stated in the report of Amber's autopsy that she had been stabbed multiple times at close range, not just a couple times, like somebody trying to defend themselves. These were intentional, like intent on killing somebody wounds that were left by someone that wanted somebody gone. And it was someone that was able to get close to them. There was too much passion in these wounds for it just to be a random killing. Amber knew her killer or killers. Luckily for the family, they also learned that Amber was not alive when the fire started. There was no evidence of any soot that was found in her lungs, so she was already gone and did not suffer from those fire injuries. Detectives worked with this new information. Amber was most likely familiar with whomever did this, and police spoke to many of the local teens that were actually attending summer school in the surrounding schools to get some insight from her peer group who could actually have been in the mindset to be able to do this type of thing to another person, especially at this young age. Well, rumors were starting to swirl around about how Amber was the target of a new love interest of Todd's. And the girl that Todd was dating was now threatened by how close Amber and Todd were supposedly, and she threatened Amber with a knife, and none of these were substantiated. Other rumors were going around saying that Todd and Amber were actually hooking up. None of these rumors had any merit, but they did have one thing in common: Todd Hoke. During this time, investigators located Amber's Mitsubishi Lancer in a very suspicious place. It was almost halfway between Todd and Nick's houses. Forensics teams located blood evidence from inside the car and inside the trunk. The blood inside the trunk was subsequently determined to be Amber's. Blood-stained handprints were also visible on the steering wheel and the gear shift. Forensic detectives lifted prints and swabbed every blood speck they could find under luminol, alternative light methods, whatever. While the lab was working hard on processing the car's evidence, the police went back to talk to Nick. Now, since Nick was on probation, it was juvenile probation, but still probation nonetheless, he was easy to find. That and being expelled from school, facing a charge of disruptive conduct, it made him not the most mobile of people. Sort of hard to move around when Johnny Q law is breathing down your neck and you can't even get a grip on your life enough to get through high school. Jeez. Anyway, I digress. Judgment? Yeah. Absolutely, totally judging right now. Police interrogated Nick again about his actions and his whereabouts on the night of Amber's murder. Nick stated again, after seeing a movie with Todd and expecting Amber to show up, she never did. They returned to his home with Todd, where Amber, again, was supposed to meet them. And she never showed up. But, story change time. Nick added another detail that was not previously disclosed. He said Todd had left Nick's house to go over to his girlfriend's house, only to return at Nick's house at 1 a.m. What? Police decided to let Nick in on the fact that they found Amber's car and Amber's body They also told him about the state of her body. They wanted to get a reaction. They didn't. Now, looking behind Nick's stoic face, detectives saw a gas can on the floor, almost peeking around from behind Nick. Detectives, watching his reaction, requested to examine it. And again, nothing. Nick was cool with it.
Did somebody order a psycho?
Across town, at the precinct, detectives discovered something in Amber's phone records that they hadn't put much thought into before. There were multiple calls in Amber's call logs between 1 and 2 in the morning on the night she was killed. This was after police assumed she had been murdered. Who was receiving these calls? Todd's sister. Coming forward, Todd's sister said that Todd had called her from a block number the night of the murder. When she put 2 and 2 together, remembering the fact that Nick and Todd were nervously scrambling around their homes for cleaning supplies and saying they needed to go somewhere and just being really evasive and real shifty, she realized that they may have had something to do with it, and that's when she came forward. Well, police, they had enough probable cause to bring both Nick and Todd in for official, recorded, case-defining interviews. Todd was the first one to be questioned by the police. His story did not change until detectives left the room. Now, dude, how people don't understand that every single centimeter of an American police station is recording audio and video at all times. I mean, from the entryway turn-in thingy from the main road, like to the toilets probably. I mean, everything is watched, recorded, and saved in a manner where, if needed one day, can be submitted as eventual evidence in a trial. Well, duh. Anyway, after detectives left Todd and his grandmother alone in the interrogation room, Todd's grandmother begged him to swear to her that he had nothing to do with any of this. She handed him her rosary and asked him to swear on it. He wouldn't.
No. No, I don't think I will.
Here's another thing that people just don't understand is that, okay, you guys have heard of the Miranda laws. Everybody knows that stuff. It's American police tactics. In no way, shape, or form do detectives have to be honest with you when they're questioning you. They can say anything to get you to talk. I mean, think about those Miranda rights. Everything that you say can and will be used against you. Nowhere does it state that anything they get from this interview will be used for you or on your side. Hell no! It's to make their case, and they will lie their asses off to get you to talk. That's why you always get an attorney. Anyway, I mean, but this is against the, potential killer in this case, so I guess I shouldn't be too angry, but people don't.
You're an idiot.
And that's just what they did to Nick. The idiot bought it. Hook, line, and sinker.
You are made of stupid.
The detectives, they told Nick that Todd flipped and said that Todd was ready to tell them that Nick did it and it was his idea and everything. Investigators also told Nick that Todd was willing to do whatever it took to nail Nick because it was all his idea. Well, Nick wasn't having that. He's like, oh, hell no. This was and always was Todd's plan. Plan? That Todd had been talking about doing this for a long, long time. And the plan was that he actually wanted to choke her to death because she got on his nerves. He didn't like her.
Why?
However, when the time came, the cord that he wanted to use in the moment that he was going to seize to execute his plan, it snapped, and Amber fought like hell against him, ruining his plans of an easy kill of his best friend. Unfortunately, Amber only made it into the kitchen where she was repeatedly stabbed in the neck, back, and chest by both teens. After that, they set the scene to resemble a burglary gone wrong, and they failed to notice that when they used the bed sheets to transport Amber to her own car to drive her and dump her in the desert, she must have been looking at pictures in bed or something because they were all wrapped up in the sheets. On their way out, they grabbed a pistol, and for good measure, to make it look like a robbery, I guess, and took off in Amber's car, trying to get rid of her by burning her in the desert. Forensic reports from Amber's car, they came back, and the fingerprints found were both from Todd and Nick. When pressed for a better motive, both teens said they just didn't like her. That's it. That was their motive. They didn't like her. The arrest absolutely shocked Amber's parents. Todd and Amber were almost inseparable. They were in constant communication. He practically lived at their house. They even joked with him by calling him Amber's brother when they introduced him to new people that came by the house. Like, they were a family. Todd Hoke, he spared the family more torture by entering a guilty plea of first-degree murder in 2010 in March. He received a life sentence. Now, Nick Castillo, he also entered a guilty plea in charges of second-degree murder and obstruction of justice by concealing a body. He received a 24-year prison sentence. Todd Hoke committed suicide in jail in 2013. Now, I'm going to show my emotion when I learned about this.
Damn, okay.
Okay, it might be harsh. Suicide sucks. And I don't want to get banned, so I can't go into how I really feel about this. But when you start thinking about a teen and how confused he was and how, something just had to happen, something snapped, you start feeling sorry for him. No. I want you to think back of a smoldering body of a young girl, helpless, with her parents, not yet knowing where she was, wondering if she was hurting in a ditch somewhere, needing help. That her friend, a smug teenage prick, stabbed this person who loved and trusted him. I've got chill bumps. So yeah, for fear of getting banned, I won't actually go into how I feel about it, but I'm sure that you guys have heard my Pillsbury laugh that I insert in some videos from time to time. I should enter it here. Sorry if you're related to him, not sorry, because where's Amber Hess? What did she do? Nothing. Anyway, next.
Don't be rude.
That's it for this case. It's already pissed me off. I'm going to go to bed mad. Anyway, but you know what this reminds me of? Did you ever hear that one of the little girl, Skylar Niece? That's what it reminds me of. And I never covered that one. It's just such a popular case. But I mean, if you guys want me to, let me know. I mean, I would if there was interest in it. But like Skylar's case, those girls, they hated her. And they were mean to her sometimes, to her face. This dude, Todd, he was a sweet friend to her face. I wonder if there was some mental illness or something. I hope so. I fucking hope so. Because to think that someone could do this and not be batshit crazy, and I'm not talking about take a couple of pills or your depression kind of crazy like I do every fucking day. Dude, whenever I say crazy, I never mean it for people with, because the depression and stuff like that, the same thing as like having high blood pressure. You gotta take a pill to make your brain work. Big deal. But this is batshit crazy. And knowing that somebody's out there like this is fucking horrifying. So have you guys ever heard of this case? It was on a show called Graveyard Mysteries or Grave Mysteries or something. I was stunned. I'd never heard of it. But once I learned about Amber and the way she was personally and kind of the similarities that our personalities had, and then I heard she loved dogs, and I knew we had to celebrate her life. So cheers, kiddo, wherever you are. I hope you're rubbing the bellies of pups that are waiting on their owners to one day cross that rainbow bridge. And if I find you when I get there, I'll give you a big hug for sure. So it's a shame this had to happen to her. And for those two, well, good riddance to the one. And, well, you know what? You can do the same thing, Nick. Anyway, see you later in the next video. Bye.
Get you trying on me knickers? Don't say knickers in front of your father. He can't cope.